Welcome to today's episode of Beyond Chronic Burnout. I'm your host, Carol Jean Whittington, and today we're diving deep into self care for aligned leadership with the incredible Tiffany Simms. Tiffany is a holistic wellness and high performance coach who helps lifelong dieters overcome burnout by healing their relationship with food, exercise, and most importantly, themselves. In this episode, we tackle the big question: should you burn all the ships down and retreat when you feel completely drained? I think we've all been there at least once, right? And Tiffany shares a heart touching moment, asking us all to pause and acknowledge that previous version of ourselves with gratitude. You don't want to miss this one.
Burnout's kicking in hard, feels like a war zone. Can't keep dragging my feet, lost in the unknown. Caribou jeans got the plan to lift me higher. Real self-care mantra, spark that fire. Energized, optimized, break the chains down. Feel the power in me, I'm gonna show how. Let the real self-care rekindle my spark. No more shadows, living strong in the dark.
Tiffany, welcome to the show. I'm so excited you are here and that we are talking all things burnout and specifically quitting our job and burning all the ships down, as we decide to plant our flag on a particular island, and the amazing things that you do in the world and help people align their energy and their life in a whole new way from that perspective of aligned, harmonious leadership. I'm so excited you're here. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Carol Jean. I'm so excited to be here. I always love our conversations. And so I'm really excited for the world to just be a part of one of them and for us to talk about the things that are really important to humans living in this world that they're struggling with in silence. And so I'm really excited for our chat.
Tiffany, kick us off with your personal experience of burnout, because I know you've got a pretty powerful story. I mean, you were working in a pretty cool job, doing some pretty cool stuff, and you were just like,
I'm out.
and peace out, y'all.
Yeah.
So how did what was your experience of in your career that you were just like, okay, this is not working? How did you recognize burnout? Was it like you were in it for a little bit, like you were in it for a minute before you realized, oh, this isn't just XYZ, I'm in burnout and it's all of these things and I've got to figure this out somehow? What has been your personal burnout journey?
I think that my experience with burnout is multifaceted. Like there's different evolutions and iterations of it, and there were different reasons for it at different stages. And so I spent 12 and a half years as a nuclear chemist, putting power on the grid, keeping your lights on. And we were a Fortune 250 company. Putting power on the grid in general is really, really stressful. Doing it at a nuclear power plant adds a different level of intention and stress and scrutiny and bells and whistles and all of the checks. And so it was a very high stress, high demand, male dominated work environment. Everything was due 3 months ago. Everything was important. And we all know that if everything's important, nothing ends up being important because you can't do all the things. And I experienced burnout multiple times in different ways throughout those 12 years. And in the first round of it, I wouldn't have even known that it was a form of burnout. And I was running myself ragged in using work as an excuse not to deal with some stuff at home. I was diving into work and using it as a reason for why I couldn't take care of myself and my body. Like, oh, I'm working so long, I'm just going to grab fast food. Oh, I got to be in the office early, I'm just going to grab something on the way. I have to be up early, so I don't have time to go to the gym. And it's not that it was an excuse, because those things were all true. But I also, when I look back, I anchored into them harder than I needed to, just to overcome the exhaustion and the overwhelm. When in reality, if I had learned how to eat well for my body and my lifestyle and learned how to incorporate movement into my day, I wouldn't have felt so drained and exhausted at the end of every day. And so in that first stage, it was really me just having an honest heart to heart with myself and being like, we can't keep functioning like this. It's exhausting to get to the mailbox. I'm tired by the time I get to my desk. I don't know if you've ever been to a power generation station, but the parking lot is usually like a mile from your office. And so I would
Yep.
half a mile to a mile every day. I'd have to hike 4 flights of stairs. And by the time I got to my desk, I was like sweaty and exhausted and a little just like worked up and like having to like recenter myself real quick to hop into a morning meeting. And so I was like, Tiff, like, we got to figure things out. Like, things don't feel good. I don't like this. I was like 5'3" and 213 pounds. And not that that's wrong or bad, but it wasn't great for me. And so I went on that journey of like just trying to figure out my health. And that got better. And in that, I evolved into a different person because I realized that like part of the reason that people were talking to me a certain way at work or that I was allowing people to treat me a certain way at work was because I didn't really believe in myself. Like I was confident, I was a hard worker. I would run all of you in circles to get my work done and really be a team player. But like I didn't know how to hold space for myself or speak up in a way where other people could hear me because I hadn't learned how to do that for myself. And so, like, in that, I learned some of those skills. I learned how to manage my schedule better. And when you work for someone else, I hear this all the time, like, you don't understand. Because now that I work for myself, it's like, oh, you don't understand. Like, my boss would never allow that. My calendar is full. It's not my own. And it's like, actually, you have so much more control. And so than you think you do. And sometimes we have to upwardly coach and hold our own space and help other people grow. So anyway, I learned some things there. Things were really well. I got promotions because I'd grown into a more capable human, able to not just take care of myself, but to hold space and elevate teams. And so I got a promotion, got in a new space. And somewhere along there, you know, that hamster wheel of we're doing all the things, we're feeling accomplished. I felt like every single day, I was like, it was all finally happening. I was successful. I was achieving the goals. I was rocking these projects. I'm talking to governors and sitting on board meetings and like giving all the presentations. And then I started feeling run down and worn out. And I felt like I kept getting new projects and I execute them well, but like nothing was ever coming from them. I felt stuck. I felt like I wasn't being heard. Like my requests weren't being heard. I felt like it was constantly pushing against a wall. And that burnout feeling of just like, F this. Like, you don't understand me. You don't respect me. You don't care about me as a person. Like, stop giving me more work. Where's the compensation for it? And one day I was like, Tiff, what kind of person do you want to be? Do you want to be the person who goes to work every day, grumpy and exhausted? Because in the back of my mind, while all those things were happening, I was also thinking, don't say anything because then they'll think you can't handle it. You're already not getting the respect in the projects that you're asking for and the opportunities that you're looking for. Something's missing. Don't let them know you can't handle it. Keep going, keep going. And I had to have that conversation with myself, Carol Jane, where I was just like, what kind of person do you want to be? And that's when I started diving into personal development and learning that, you know what, I can't control my boss. I can't control how he interacts with his boss and all of these things. But in my square, what do I have control over? And how do I hold myself and elevate those around me? And that changed. And that was good for probably 3 years until I landed myself in the hospital because I thought I was having a heart attack.
Oh, that's a little scary. That's kind of a wake up.
Yeah. And so, like, I was having these moments of elevating myself and growing through it, but I was still struggling because my family was out of whack. I didn't have time for my friends. I was starting to let my health go again because I was just trying so hard to achieve at work. And I started blaming work for my life falling apart. When in reality, the truth was, I allowed myself to get into that situation. It wasn't work. It was Tiffany not having the skills and resources and awareness and a little bit of self-sabotage, because it was so much easier to not care about myself and fall in the funk and just ride the suck train than it was to make the change. And one day I was at work and I was getting chest pains and it felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest and everything was fluttering. And it all happened after a miscarriage. I really had a hard time with that. And I just kind of sunk into some depression there and things started piling on. And I went, the ER was like, your HKJ is good. I recommend you follow up with primary care. And with my primary care, she was like, I was like, I really felt like I was having a heart attack. I've never had one before, but like, I don't know what else it could have felt like. And she was like, that's what anxiety feels like. That is an anxiety and a panic attack. And my first thought was, I'm too strong for a panic attack. I got this. Who does that? Like, that's not real.
Right? Oh, I so relate.
I was like, no. I like rejected it. I was like, no, that's ridiculous. I can handle it. This isn't panic and anxiety. I just need to do more.
People who aren't together do that. I got it together.
Yeah, like I just
I'm
gotta
pushing it. I can push through.
And through the years of the antidepressants and the anxiety meds over time, through the ebbs and flows, she had said this to me before, but for whatever reason, when you think you've had a heart attack, it just hits different. And
Yeah.
she said, Tiffany, if something doesn't change, it will be a heart attack next time. Makes me, I feel it still to this day. It's been like 3 years now and I still feel it. And it just clicked in for me. And I was just like, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And I was like, Tiff, the reason that you're burned out and exhausted is because you're not doing the thing you're supposed to be doing anymore. And I know we talked about before, like, when should someone burn the ships and jump and burn it all down and do something different? And it was that moment. She put me on a sabbatical. I had 7 days off, not 7 regular days. She gave me 7 work days off. And I was so ashamed that someone at work would know that I couldn't handle it, that like I made up excuses for why I needed time off because I didn't want people to know the truth. Because I was just like, what am I going to do? Like, I've got a secure income. Like, I've been working really hard. Like, my family is falling apart. My social life doesn't exist anymore. Like, work doesn't feel fulfilling. Like, how did I get here? What is happening to me? I love her so much. My previous self, I don't know if you ever feel this. Do you ever just get so proud and honored to know a previous version of yourself? Like, she's the strongest person you know.
Yeah.
That's what I'm feeling right
now. It hits me hard. Every guy, you got me tearing up now.
Like,
there's just so much that we tie to that, because it's like when you get to the other side, you go, I know what you knew back then and what you didn't know, and you made it here, and now you know different.
Look how you turned out. Like, look at what you grew through. Like, that's so cool. But like, I had so much shame and embarrassment around the fact that my doctor prescribed time off when there was nothing. My legs weren't broken. I didn't have surgery. I didn't have a heart attack. Like, I just couldn't handle my shit was the mindset in that moment. But during those 7 days, which was really 10, was that 9 or 10? Because you have a weekend in there. I realized that the reason that what got me there was that I was no longer taking accountability for my own life. And I was just riding the ride because it was convenient and easy and what I knew to be true. And I went back to work and I was like, all right, here's the plan. This is where we're going. I need to articulate what I want a little bit better, because clearly I haven't been communicating well enough. Like, I'm in positions that I didn't want, but I took it for the team, and I took these roles for the team. Like, we just have to reset some things so that together all ships rise, right? When the tide rises. And I was back at work for a week. And I was sitting at home feeling a little fluffy, a little overwhelmed. And I was like, caught myself Googling how to lose 20 pounds. I have been a health coach on the side as a hobby for like a decade at this point. And I was like, Tiffany, you know that that's not the answer. What are you doing? And I got so angry, Carol Jean, that I was like, this is the real reason you got burnt out, girl. You've been ignoring the thing. You've been ignoring the thing. If health and wellness industry is $1 trillion a year industry, yet no one's teaching people how to be healthy, and in a moment of weakness, instead of doing the things you know you need to do to take care of your body and to be healthy, you looked for a stupid quick fix that you know isn't going to work because someone sold that to you when you were 10 and you thought that that was the answer. And it was like that moment where I was like, oh my God, you have two choices. You can either accept this is the way it is and stop complaining and go back to the vision that you had painted in nuclear power for yourself and go be the leader of all the things, or you do something about it. But those are your two options. And it was like in those moments, in those conversations with myself, that I was like, the real reason I was burnt out wasn't because my boss sucked and that I was doing too much. It was that I wasn't creating harmony between my health, my relationships, and my career. And that's on me. And part of the reason that career bucket was so out of whack was because for 2 years, I knew I wasn't supposed to be working in nuclear power anymore, that I was supposed to be helping people with their health. And I thought that that was crazy and too much work and too hard. And so I was literally going through the motions every day. And so, like, I just feel like I just took you on such a roller coaster of my life and in that burnout circle. And at the same time, that's how burnout happens. It's messy and it's not linear. And it is the ups and downs, and you not knowing you're there until it's too late.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Mm. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
so
Thank
messy.
you for sharing that, Tiffany, because it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of bravery and vulnerability and just self awareness to step in and say, this was the journey. This is the messy journey. This was the up and down. This is the shame storm. This was the garbage that was running through my brain that I was believing about myself. And to be able to go, okay, I'm going to look back at that older
It's just
version of
a
me.
season. Just keep pushing. It's just a season.
Yeah. We get told, in that hustle grind culture, we get told, just power through it. You're going to get to the other side and it'll be fine. And the thing is, with that, there are moments for strength and resiliency, and there are moments for standing strong in the storm. But there are more moments of compassion and curiosity and self love and awareness, reflection, to double check, to check in with yourself and go, am I in alignment?
Am I in alignment? Is my team in alignment? Because
Yeah.
I need, like, because you know this, like, especially in business, like, there are seasons of hustle and grind. And that doesn't, I feel like the word hustle has gotten such a dirty word, it's such a dirty word. But there are seasons where you really have to give it everything. And there are going to be late nights and long days and some weekends in there to like accomplish a thing. But it's supposed to truly be a season. And in my job, it was, I mean, like for 3 years, my boss was like, we just got to get through this. It's just a season. We're going to get through it. And that season was still existing at the same intensity, if not worse, 3 years later. And that is not that, that's not
That's
a,
not a season, that's a
that's,
cycle.
yeah, it was not even a cycle. That's just the way of being. And we're just
Yeah.
using these
Yeah.
words to passivate people. And so, like, that I don't know where I was going with that. I think it was just like hustle isn't a bad word. It's not, there's nothing wrong with working hard and knowing what you're working towards. But if you literally are just spinning and spinning and spinning, it's that moment to just pause, give yourself some space, and really assess what is really going on.
Yeah. I always talk about it like a rubber band. And, the whole point is that with the rubber band, we can stretch it and we can feel the resistance and the tension. So we can stretch to a certain degree that we have the flexibility to do that. and we feel it, and it shows up in our body, it shows up in our thinking, it shows up in our energy, it shows up in our relationships when we are stretching that rubber band ourselves to the point of breaking or snapping. Because then when we do come back, it is so fast. We are pulled back so hard that we hit the wall.
Yeah.
And when we become aware of where is my flexibility, where is my threshold of what's comfortable, what works for me, so I can stretch, I can get that little tight bit of rubber band, but in what time frame? So the timeline is the part that we got to factor in there. And then when I recognize, okay, I can do that for a day or two where I'm stretched to this point and it's a little tight tension, but I need to pull back and take the tension off the rubber band off myself and give my time to recharge, refuel, to reset and allow space. Because when we don't have that stretch and that ebb and flow, we are denying ourselves the opportunity for process, for reflection, to raise our awareness, to stay in a place of being in alignment and harmony. Because if we're so busy looking at the goal 10 miles down the road, stretching the heck out of the rubber band like we're, a team of huskies pulling a sled with, 2 million tons on the back of it, we're not going to get there in one piece if we get there.
Yeah.
And when we
100.
get there, there's a whole nother 10 miles to go. And we don't have anything left.
There's nothing left. And so, yeah, 100% agree with you. It's just you have to create the space sometimes and be objective, and which can be really hard when you're in it and you're exhausted and there's nothing left. It's really hard to look at facts and to leave your emotions out of it to really have a true assessment. One of the things that I talk about now, because like when you work a traditional job and you work for someone else and you're in that corporate culture, and then you start your own, you leave and do something on your own and start a new company, people think that that's the answer. It's like, I just need to quit, I need a new job, I'm gonna get a new job, I'm just gonna do my own thing, I'm gonna be my own boss. And it's like, because they're like, that must be the answer because that's what you did. And it's like, that's actually not the right answer for everyone. And I didn't get here on a whim. Like, there is a very specific reason that I left my job to start a company. It wasn't just because I was having a temper tantrum and couldn't take anymore. Like, there were very specific reasons. And so, like, the message I really want to share today, Carol Jean, is that, like, if you're feeling like you're not getting respected, you feel like your boundaries, you can't hold your own boundaries, you feel like you're just on that hamster wheel and you're asking, like, I just need a new job, I really encourage you to think, what skills do I need in that next job that I actually want? And how do I develop them now in the role that I have? Because I'll tell you something, like, this is the truest thing ever, is you will take you with you. And the reason you're in a position right now is because there is something you don't know how to do. And so, like, why not take the opportunity in a position where it is secure to learn how to do it differently? And then once you learn that skill, because maybe it's that you've been trying to enforce boundaries, but you never learned how to hold them.
Or you're not aware that there are 7 types of boundaries and 3 styles of boundaries, and you're not sure how to align what's happening in your life with a specific boundary type so that you even know where to begin. And a boundary is just a rule that says, hey, this is how I operate, and this is how I operate with myself. This is how I operate with other people, so that I am being fueled and nourished along the way
Yeah. You know what?
consistently.
One of the big lessons I learned with boundaries, Carol Jean, was that it wasn't my job to enforce them and put them on other people. Like, a real boundary, you don't actually have to talk about. You hold it for yourself. It's yours. I had a friend, her name is Dr. Linda, and we were at a treat once, and she gave us all hula hoops and she put us in the hula hoops. And she was like, and she would, like, come up to it and she'd be like, she'd ask a question, like a really uncomfortable question. And if we started answering it, she'd push in. And then if we were like, that's not for me, she would have us push her away. And that hula hoop was like the representation of, like, how far and close you let people to you. But it's not our job to tell people how to treat us. It's our job to show them and hold that line for ourselves. And that made us such a big difference.
We're taking a quick pause in the show to share an exciting opportunity. Self Care September is here. When you register for Self Care September, you'll get my exclusive self care guide filled with tools to help you unlock your best energy and well being. This month long event features expert guests discussing everything from pain relief and aging to measuring self care, staying out of burnout during a job hunt, and so much more. Plus, don't miss our special events like 20-minute micro recharge lab sessions with me, Carol Jean, yoga with Lori, and trauma informed meditation with Meditation Magazine's editor in chief, Kevin Ellerton. It's not too late. Join us today at whittingtonwellbeing.com. Now, let's get back to our self care conversation.
I feel like that's not
Mm.
fair. Let me give an example. I had a coworker who he was an older guy. He was grumpy and he'd get flustered easily and he would yell at people all the time because he was just so passionate about the thing getting done and done properly, right? Like he would just get frustrated. And the first time I encountered him, I came back to my desk and I was just like, this is not okay. Like, this is not an okay way to like treat people. Like, we're at work. I don't let my friends talk to me like that. I'm sure not letting a coworker, like little 28-year-old me. It's like, I'm not letting a coworker talk to me like that. And everyone around me, younger, older, new, been there a while, was just like, oh, it's just who he is. Like, I wouldn't take it personally. Just roll with it. He's just because he really cares about the project and the work and the success. And I'm like, this isn't right, but okay. So we're on the phone for a project and he starts yelling at me. And I just neutrally held space. And I was just like, hey, I really understand you're frustrated. I get it. I'm not too happy myself, but you can't yell at me. Like, can you stop yelling at me? And then gave him like 3 minutes of like that space and understanding. And finally, I was just like, hey, I know you're worked up. I know that you want this to succeed. I do too. I'm going to hang up with you now. Feel free to come back by my desk when like you want and we can talk about this, but I'm not going to be yelled at anymore. And I hung up the phone. My boss comes out of his office. My coworkers start. They're like, who were you talking to? And I said who I was talking to. And they're like, I can't believe you said that. Nothing's going to change. Like, you really said that? That's like career ender. You need him on your team. And I was just like, but I'm not going to be talked to like that. Like, I wouldn't talk to someone else the way he just talked to me. We weren't getting anywhere. And I tell you what, Carol Jean, 30 minutes later, he comes by my desk. He apologized for how he spoke to me, shared that he was just upset because he had done all of this work. He had told the team that the thing that they went after wasn't going to work. And here we are. Right. And he was like, it's just really frustrating. And I was like, I get it. I get it. And I was like, here's some ideas I came up. We started talking. And I will tell you, in the 5 years after that, never once did that man raise his voice to me again. But yet he yelled, he jumped, popped his top at other people.
What we allow
Yeah.
is what we invite.
Right. And a previous version of me would have yelled back at him, trying to force my boundary on him of, you can't yell at me like that. But that wasn't my job. My job was to hold my space and remove myself from the things that weren't for me.
Yeah.
It changed everyone thought I was a career ruiner. It changed the relationship. And he was one of my right hand guys for years. Anything I needed, that man made it happen.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's just one of those examples of the difference between forcing your boundary of, you're not going to yell at me like that, and losing your stuff, versus just being like, hey, I'm going to remove myself from this situation because these are my boundaries and I'm in control of them.
Yeah.
And it's a skill.
It is a skill. It is a muscle that you build. But I think it starts with what you mentioned when you were sharing just your experience of burnout. And it's getting to this place that we view ourselves as worthy. This place of self-love, of compassion.
I haven't thought about that. But you're right.
Because you had mentioned when you started to do certain things in your life that were giving you that confidence in your skills and in who you were, who you are, that shifted how you started to show up. And one of the things, like for me in particular, I mean, I was in burnout for almost 40 years, starting at the age of 6 in some degree, for that whole time until I was 42. And I was like, okay, this is so bad. My health is failing. I am literally laying here and I cannot even feed myself. I can't lift my own hand to feed myself. I have 2 small children. I have all of these things in my head that this is what my life was supposed to be like. This is who I am. And I'm not that person. And I feel like I am failing in so many ways. And it was like, I am either going to continue and I'm going to figure it out somehow, some way. There was this glimmer of hope, but then there was this other, because there's always duality, or I'm not going to wake up tomorrow. I won't be here tomorrow because I'm just going to quit everything. And it was like in that moment that there was just the smallest sand grain, right? There was just this grain of sand that said, there's more. This isn't what you're meant to do, but this is what you have because this is what you created. And if you created this, you can create something different.
Yeah.
And I didn't even have the words for that. It was just a feeling.
Yes. It is a feeling. And it's that feeling of like what I sometimes it's I don't even know it's like I don't know the answer, but you have that feeling of what we're doing right now isn't working. So like I need to assess this and figure out what my next right step is. And to go back to, because I got on a tangent, to go back to that question of like, should you burn the ships? I honestly, I do not believe that that should be your first step, because there's something that you need to learn. I mentioned that earlier. There's something that you need to learn, that a skill, a habit, a tactic, a something that you didn't have before that allowed you to get into this point where everything is blowing up around you. And so like take time non-judgmentally, not to blame yourself, not to like blame other people, but to just neutrally observe what the landscape is. And then it's like, okay, I could have done these things a little differently and maybe that would have helped. So let me work on that. And then it's like, okay, if I'm looking at other jobs and other companies, what job do I want? Okay, what skills do I need to develop to be the perfect candidate when I show up for that interview? And then how do I get that now? I mentioned that a little bit earlier too. And then from there, after you've done those things, and while you're growing, while you're working on yourself, while you're trying to achieve your next career goals, you then pause and go, is that now that I've grown into this new person and someone who can hold a more holistic, calm life with more plates and more balls, is this still the place for me? Sometimes, and most of the time, the answer is yes, because we were the problem, and not in a condescending way, but we were the problem. And now we're good, at least for another season until we're ready to evolve and grow again. And then there's other times where it's like, you know what? This is no longer the right pot for me. I need to be replanted. And that's where I was at the end. There was no amount of growth and development and skills in career pathing that was going to bring harmony between my health, relationships, and money anymore, because I had outgrown that pot and I wasn't supposed to be there anymore. I was just resisting the change because staying stuck in that was comfortable, miserable, but comfy and known. And I didn't know what the new pot was going to really look like and how it was going to work. And so like that ebb and flow of really those assessments. And then I'm the person who at that point had to burn the bridges, because I knew I would, if I had a safety net, I would never actually make the leap. But
Hmm.
you know yourself, because the leap is hard. The leap without a safety net, especially if you're going into something on your own and you've never done that before, there's a lot of things you don't know how to prepare for. And you have to be so committed to the outcome that no matter how hard it is and no matter how many times you stumble and it doesn't work, and you get up and you try again because you're so passionate about the thing that you're trying to create, that failure just isn't an option. But for other
And the thing is, like, if you pick it, And you, it doesn't matter, like, it's already successful. If you could dream it, if you could envision it, if you could have the idea that this is what the outcome is that I want, it is absolutely all possible. If you can dream it, you can do it. Yeah. And it's so, I love what you just brought up because it immediately popped to mind. There was this dating conversation that I had heard one time. And it really struck me because I applied it to my business life, to my career life, and just my personal life, right? In relationships and in work. And I think it kind of just applies across the board, really. And this person was talking about, describe your ideal partner, right? In the dating context. Tell me exactly, describe their qualities. What do they look like? How do they behave? What do they do? Give me all the juicy stuff. Give me the details. And so the person was sharing all of these things. It's like, this is the ideal. And then this was kind of the tough question. And it was, would that person choose you right now?
Mm.
And everybody in the room was like, probably not. Cause I don't have my stuff together and I'm doing all these things. Right. And said, that is your perfect ideal partner. Absolutely. You're going to have to do the work to be at the place where that person is aligned with you.
Yes. Yes. And the same in your career too, right? Like we all
Yep.
want to, I know my worth. I do this, I do that. They don't know what they're missing. And sometimes it's like, if you were hiring you, would you want to hire you? Would you want to hire someone like you? And the honest answer, and I can say this because there were times where like I wouldn't have hired me if I really looked at my behavior in certain moments and the way I was carrying myself and the way I was acting, because I wasn't being a team player. I wasn't doing the things. I wasn't respecting myself enough to have healthy relationships at work the way I needed to. Like, would you hire you in the workplace? Because it's got to be, and same in relationships, it's got to be mutually beneficial, but we want to forget that part.
Yep. We get caught in this, like, somehow I deserve it. Like it should just be given to me, or because I want it, I should get it. And it's not a matter of you not being worthy of it. It's a matter of, have you aligned to it?
Yes. You deserve everything that you want in this world. The question is how
Absolutely.
are you showing up to achieve it and to get it? And are you showing up in a way that's sustainable for
Yes.
you and your family? Because there's a lot of different ways to get to where you're going. And a lot of people are going to end up in the same spot and they came from a different direction. But like, is it going to work for you the way you're doing it? And a lot of times the answer is no. It's why we crash and burn, is because we're not doing it in a way that's sustainable for us.
And I think the other part too, and you bring this up so beautifully in the conversation, Tiffany, and the other part of that is how we perceive and what the context is around those moments where things didn't go to plan, when they didn't work out. It's not a failure. I just do not look at anything as a failure. Everything is a lesson. Everything is giving me something for the next step, the next iteration, because whatever I've envisioned, it's already mine. It is already possible. In quantum physics, if you can already think it, then it is already existing. And
Yes.
so it's just a matter of, what path am I taking to get there? And am I the one putting up the barriers, the hurdles, and the boulders that I'm having to navigate because I'm not willing to go, oh, hey, well, that didn't work really well. I'm going to do it this way next time because I learned in this thing that didn't work too pretty good, as some folks would say. That didn't work out too pretty good. So I'm gonna try it this way. This might work better. There's always, nine different ways to Sunday. I mean, as they say, you could skin a cat 10 different ways. They got 9 lives, and eventually, you're gonna get there. The cat might be bald and patchy and weird colors, but we'll eventually get there. The
Yeah,
cat
we're
will
going
get a bath.
to. And when you get there, you're going to learn things about yourself, because there's two things that will happen when you get there. One, you will now be someone you have never been before because you just achieved something you'd never achieved. And by looking back, you are going to learn things about the way you got here. You're going to learn the things that worked well. You're going to learn what things that didn't. And you're going to grow from that. And some of the things, this is a really hard concept when you're in it, is some of the things that worked for you to get to where you are the exact thing that is keeping you from going to the next place, because
Yep.
it's not the path to the next level.
Everything is, for me, I look at it as how do I make my ceiling my floor?
Oh, I like that. Oh, sorry, random brain thought. Something I thought of while you were speaking earlier when you were just talking is you're talking about like if you can dream it, you can do it. Everything's already yours. Something I recently started writing. So every day I write down the 3 things I'm grateful for in the last 24 hours. And I used to write big, scary goals and I would like list them out. And then I would like list out what are today's actions that I'm going to take me one step closer to those. I started writing future memories.
Ooh, I like that.
I think I heard Lori Harder say that once
Oh, I
at a,
love Lori.
and she said it and I was like, but I didn't do anything with that for like a year. And I was just journaling one morning and that's what I wrote. And I was like, it just hits different. They are my future memories. And like I can step into them. And sometimes the best thing about memories is that even when we've already experienced things and they are our past memories, we've morphed them in our mind. So even if they don't look the same way in the future when it actually is executed, you were still right, because that vision and that dream and that you stepping into that reality is what led you down the path to actually executing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Tiffany, this has been such a great conversation. So, as we wrap up, addressing the question of do we just burn it all down? Do we just like torch the ships and burn the bridges, find a new career and like reset and start over if we are just burnt and burned out and tired and just emotionally just completely exhausted? What's the one thing you would want somebody to know today who may be feeling that way?
Yeah. There's one thing I want you to know, and there's one thing I want you to do about it. So the thing I want you to know, and I have it tattooed on my arm, like I anchor into this concept all day, is one step at a time. What is the next right decision for me? That's the only thing you have to know right now. And then the one thing I want you to do is I want you to take the time, and I know time is precious and you don't have any. It's part of why you're feeling burnout and overwhelmed, is like there's no time. I really want you to create the time and write out, what does healthy mean to me? What does healthy feel like for me? I want you to do the same for your relationships. What do they look like? What are you doing? How do you show up in them? How do they show up for you? What words do you describe your friends? What words do your friends use to describe you? And then you do the same for your career. What do you want your career to look like? That, when you do that, that's your GPS and only yours, and it will grow and evolve with you. And when you start from your home base and your GPS, that's how you know when you're in those burnout cycles what to do next, and if you're supposed to actually burn the bridges, learn a skill, make a move, or all of the above at the same time. But you can't know what's right for you if you don't know who you are and what success looks like for you.
Oh, that is so good. And for all you unveilers, what Tiffany just described, that's your Thrive destination statement.
That sounds fancy. You have to talk to me about that.
That's our GPS in the unveiling method. Tiffany, thank you so much for being here. If people are ready to get started on their journey and really get to this aligned place of harmony and really starting to look at their nourishment and their physicality to really start charging themselves in a whole new way and start leading themselves in a way that they haven't done before. Like they're aligning to that ideal partner, that career, that person, and they know that they are becoming something new.
Yeah.
How do they get in touch with you to work with you?
Yeah, Carol Jean's gonna drop a link in the chat and or in the show notes. And that is for the woman who is ready to truly tune into her own intuition and know what's next for her. I believe that the fastest way to learn how to listen and interpret your own intuition is learning how to become an intuitive eater. while also expanding your reality and learning about your energy and learning about persuasion skills and influence and how to truly have it all. And so I really encourage that 6-week accelerator for anyone looking to dive in, because it is the home base for just opening the world of thriving and getting out of survival mode.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Beyond Chronic Burnout. I hope you feel energized and ready to take on the challenges ahead. Remember, you are not alone in this journey. Let's stay connected. Go follow me over on Instagram at Carol Jean Whittington, where you can join our Beyond Chronic Burnout channel for personal messages from me each week, and subscribe to the podcast for more conversations and burnout insights. Together, we'll continue to break out of burnout and unlock our authentic selves. Until next time, this is Carol Jean Whittington signing off. Stay compassionately curious, my friends.
Thanks for being here. It's been quite a ride. Energy mastery, let's turn the tide. Top shelf guests, dropping wisdom bombs. Join us next week, where the energy's strong. Beyond chronic burnout, we're breaking free.